Hi, welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to talk about the magic behind the N-scale tornado. So stay tuned and we'll talk about it right after this. So what do we have today? Well, we have the N-scale tornado, featured video if you want to check it out a little later on. And what I did with this is a T-Trak module, okay? And so you have, it's a standard module available from Klawndyke, okay? I'll link his website in the description. But basically all this is a single wide module, and I have the track that I put down here. It's just two, well, there's 4 pieces of track, exactly what they recommend to put on there, and it has the overhang that you would need. It's basically the same, it is to T-Trak specifications, okay, where you have a 1 millimeter minimum overhang on each side so that they can connect to the next one. So what I did then is a little bit of modeling magic, so to speak. The main character, of course, is the tornado, and you can see there's lightning going on inside it. It's out for destruction, okay? So people look at it and they say, well, how'd you make that? I was like, well, and I wanted to do this for quite a while. I've seen others do it. I mean, you can research on YouTube, and there's people out there who have done different versions of it. Obviously, this one does not spin. If I had a home layout, I mean, I've seen modules where they've gone all out, and the thing actually comes down from the sky and spins and goes on a little ways, and then it spins back up again. I did not get that involved with this, obviously, but what I did was, well, I needed to figure out how to build this out where it looked more or less like a funnel. So what I did, I was just mulling this idea around. How am I going to do this? And then one morning the inspiration hit me. I had bacon bits, generic bacon bits that I bought at a store, and this was the container that they came in. And I looked at that and I said, well, if I turn this upside down, put it like that, and then, I don't know, how could I build out around that? Well, I have plastic canvas, okay? I bought in sheets. They're sheets of plastic canvas, relatively cheap. I don't know if they were not even $1 a sheet, and you get a a regular size piece of paper size, like an 8x11 or something like that it was. And I took it and I hot glued one portion here, came around, and it naturally would bend out, okay, to make this funnel type shape. And I put several pieces, I believe, I think there was 3, and I had to trim them up a little bit and then kind of jigsaw puzzle them into place and glue all those together, and then it make, oh wow, that's a pretty nice size funnel. Well, now what do I do? Well, at the time I have a lot of cotton balls, okay, and I thought, well, that's great, I can use cotton balls. And so I went and I got spray glue and I held it out, away from me, obviously, sprayed up just a section at a time, and then took these cotton balls and put them on there. And they were doing okay, a decent job, but it wasn't as satisfying to look at. So in the meantime, I'd seen an ad on Facebook for this company called Evan Designs, which I'll link in the description also. And they had a lightning storm effect. Okay, so all it is there's two LEDs in different places on the inside of this, and so I had to cut the top of this off. I fed the LEDs down through. I cut a hole down here in the bottom, a good size hole down here in the bottom, and I fed the LEDs down through, and excuse me, I wired them in, and they pull off of track power. Okay, so we'll get into this in just a minute, but I want to finish explaining about that. So when this is out, this module is out on the road and or at home, I can use whatever track power I'm getting, whether it's coming from at a show, coming from the group's power supply, or if I'm at home, I use my own power supply. It's still getting power either way. So the effect is still going. Getting back to the tornado part though. So I had it covered with the cotton balls. Didn't look great. So I was talking or looking at other videos, and I saw somebody use fiberfill. And I was like, oh, okay. So I got some of that. And they come in a bag, roughly about so big. And I just went, hit it with the spray adhesive again. And I was able to tease them out. And lo and behold, I mean, it took on a personality all its own. I said, oh, well, this is fantastic. Okay, so I got this big white cloud that's a tornado looking thing, but this doesn't look right. Okay, so what do I do next? Well, I went with the spray cans. Now, I watched Twister many times, and it's actually one of my favorite movies to watch. Kind of the inspiration for this, because I have the and that's another thing I'll have to get into, a billboard down here for Twister. So I watched it and I looked at it and I said, well, most tornadoes are not clean. They're not white. There's debris, there's dust, there's all kinds of things. Plus you have the thunderstorm going on, multiple, lightning strikes and all that stuff going on inside. So what do? So I went, took my spray can, and I went over it with some gray and some black. Just, like hit it here, there, here, there. It's like, okay, well, that looked good. So took the twister when I was done with it, and I set it aside. So now it came time to do the rest of the module. I had a place, I cut the hole for it, for the wires to come through. Otherwise I wouldn't have had to cut any hole if I wouldn't have put the lightning inside it. But anyway, I cut the hole. I put the wires through, and I needed a building. I needed a couple buildings because it's farmland. So found the barn on eBay and the fencing as well. I said, okay, so that's that side of the road. What about this other side? Again, looking for houses that were falling over, dilapidated, whatever you want to call it, because the twister is causing destruction. So I went and I found a house. It was a 3D printed one. And I have other 3D printed N-scale buildings. And some are harder to paint than others. But this one, it was a little bit of a challenge because it was already one piece. So to get a paintbrush in there was a challenge at times. But what worked in my favor was the back half of the house is inside the tornado, so I didn't really have to do much back there or care how it turned out. So I painted it for the most part, and then I said, well, how are we going to simulate more destruction going on? And I had a little pencil sharpener, electric pencil, battery operated pencil sharpener. And there were shavings in there. I was like, well, that looks like wood. So I crunched them up a little bit more than they were already and put some glue on there and sprinkled these on. And I was like, well, that looks pretty good. Okay, so we got that much. What about the tornado? Well, I also had the shavings, plus I had some pieces of plastic that were like these little sprues and stuff like that. They were very small. So I went and, again with the spray glue, and I sprinkled stuff all over it, like in here and over in here, whatever. And then the finishing touch, you had to have the cow from Twister. And people looked at, and the people have seen that, and they said, that's great. One other person had already said, well, we expected to see The Wicked Witch of the West up here. I was like, well, that's the wrong movie. But I get it. That would have been cool too. So how I did the sign, I'll get to this part next. I had a picture of the movie poster, okay? And I reduced it down and then printed it out on a regular, using a computer. I printed it out and made the frame out of just some, let's see, I think it's just, wood ties and stuff like that for HO scale stuff. And then made the frame for the billboard. And there's actually, it's very difficult to see even when you're looking close up. I actually found a sign for Wakita, which is the town that's at the end of Twister that the F5 Twister goes through. So I put that in there for the city limits for Wakita. Oh, I thought that was an interesting touch. And then the road, that was just pieces of poster board. I took the poster board, I spray painted it this gray, and then I used these pencils, colored pencils, and made the lines for the road. And then obviously made a couple, patches, whatever. This was the hardest part, was getting, I had to cut it exactly so that it would fit right here in the track. But once I got it glued down, it was great. And this is performed admirably as far as that goes with this in between. I mean, there's no derailments. It runs fine. So that's that part. So let's get to the innards, okay? So let me unplug this for a second. Okay. Let me get the power off here. Okay. So we'll take a look first on the back. Okay, we'll spin this around. Now the way I do this, okay, so this is an NCE fascia plate, okay? That it's hooked up, of course. It dropped on the floor. This uses the NCE power cab, okay? And this is plenty big enough for what little bit I have of end scale. So that plugs in on this left side. And then I have these switches here. You see inside and outside. I have this set up, as I said at the top of the show, where this can run with a club layout at a train show or whatever, or I could run it with my own power supply. And the way I do that are these two switches. If I have it up with the zeros, that means the Tornado and the Trak are strictly using the club power supply. And it isolates the power cab. Now, of course, if I flip these on, then it's running off the power cab power. And a neat trick that I added to it is this is also a wireless setup where I can run with my phone or tablet, whatever, using Wi-Fi. I can run my trains that way. And the way I do that is I substituted this right here. This is from a company called Wi-Fi Tracks. Okay, this is their WFD 31, which allows me to use an NCE power cab plugged in just as you normally would on one of their boards, and then it also has the power out, but I can use other power supplies back here, and it's pretty neat. I mean, I can upgrade the power from about 2 amps to at least 5 amps, which is a lot. But the way I did it, let me see if I can get this to go right, is the power comes off of here and it splits, okay? So there's a lead that goes over here to this switch and another lead that comes around and goes to this switch. So then I could turn the power on and off up here, and that isolates this from getting any kind of a surge or power coming back at it from the Trak if it's powered from external sources. But in the meantime, both power supplies, or I think maybe just one, I think it's just one, will come in and not only run to the Trak, but it also runs up to the Tornado. So I have it wired in that way. And that's really what it is, what all there is to it. And then of course I have my backdrop here is already secured in place with these two wing nut and bolt. But that's all there is to that. And so that's it. So we'll wrap it up with that. And that is the Tornado. Now in our future videos, we're going to also cover some other modules that I've made using homemade and also using the modules from Klawndyke. So take a look at his stuff. He's got some great modules. They're very easy to work with. I highly recommend them. Plus they're super easy to put together. And we'll see you in the next one. So you guys have a great day. Check out the next video and I'll see you soon.